with that being said, there are literally thousands of ways that you could choose to make your Thanksgiving table unique, your own, special, and fabulous. But we, this year, I think should focus on one thing, which is keeping it simple and delicious. We are making honey habanero turkey with a stuffing cornbread. Yes, I said stuffing cornbread because it's cornbread flavored with all the things that we love about stuffing. Celery, onion, I'm doing thyme leaves. You could throw some sage in there if you love that. It's a little bit sweet. It's a little bit crunchy and buttery and savory. Now let's talk about the turkey for a second. Some families do need the visual impact of the humongous, roasted full turkey on your table, sitting there like a little mountain troll. Some families need that to feel like they got the Thanksgiving moment that they thought about all year long. But if all you are after is the juiciest, tenderest, most delicious turkey that you can cook in half the time, we're doing an hour and a half of cooking rather than 3 to 4 hours of cooking for larger birds, you will want to pay attention to this recipe because we are making a broken down turkey. So it cooks in half the time. You get maximum golden brown crispy skin. You get super juicy, delicious, perfectly cooked turkey. Even better, say there's a predominance of breast lovers or thigh or leg lovers. You can get duplicates of those cuts of the meat and you can make it all and you can make it fast and you will look like a star. And keep Thanksgiving as wondrous as humanly possible, and also keep it easy on yourself, which we love. Let's get started with the honey habanero glaze. So obviously this is going to give your turkey lots of wonderful sweetness, some nice heat. We are using habaneros, which are extravagantly spicy little peppers that look like this. You can take the heat down by only using one. I'm gonna use 2. You can go crazy and use 3 if you'd like to. You can use jalapenos instead. I just kind of liked habaneros have this really fruity heat to them, and they're pretty. And the nice thing is, if you are really a sweet heat lover, you can save the candied habaneros that will come out of the honey and garnish them over your finished dish and really just wow and surprise your taste buds and your friends. So the first thing, I'm just gonna quickly slice my way through my habaneros. Something I will warn you about is to touch nothing after you've done this. Literally, do not touch your eyes. Do not touch any sensitive anything because the heat on here is exquisite and painful. And I would not want you to get hurt. So what we're going to do immediately is wash our hands. So the first thing we're going to do is get about 2 cups of honey into a saucepan. And you don't need to precisely measure it, but it'll be about 2/3 of this bottle. And that obviously sounds like quite a bit of honey, but the reason we are making this quantity is because half is going to be used to glaze and baste our bird and make sure that it is maximum flavor saturation. And the other half you will have on your Thanksgiving table to garnish and glaze over whatever you should choose to use. Well, this was kind of silly. I should have washed my hands after this part, but now I'm being lazy and don't want to wash my hands again. That is really the honest truth. Get your habanero into the honey. Go ahead and get your peppers and honey over a medium flame. We're going to bring it up to a little simmering bubble and then just cut the heat and let it steep for about 20 minutes. And as the honey cools, it will pull the heat out of the peppers and this honey will be hot. It's a very hot honey, which, by the way, I feel like is one thing you can keep in your kitchen and start adding to savory mixes, like obviously pizza is the thing that hot honey seems to be used the most for. And just play around. I feel like condiments, quality condiments with lots of flavor, one of the easiest ways to really amp up your cooking overall. While the honey is simmering away, let's get started on our cornbread mix, because one of the things that I think is really like a game changer for people who do Thanksgiving in a way that doesn't make them insane, makes them feel like they are really in control and yields the most exquisite meal, is they plan ahead. And they make sure not to overcrowd the number of meals they have to make on actual Thanksgiving Day when your kitchen space and your oven space is limited. So one of the best things you can do is make a stuffing that actually benefits from being made days in advance. And this cornbread stuffing is just that. You make the cornbread maybe a day, maybe 2 days ideally before Thanksgiving, and then you want it to get a little bit stale so that as it dries, it leaves space to soak up the liquid and the flavorings of this beautiful stuffing mix that we're making. The first step is to cut up some veg to flavor our stuffing cornbread. So I'm gonna grab, let's do 3 stalks of celery. I like a little crunch, a little juiciness in here. Give them a quick rinse and a quick quickly dry them off. And then we'll just put a nice little mince on these. You don't need these to be too tiny, but you know, the smaller they are, the more they'll sort of just melt and dissipate into the cornbread mix. The larger they are, the slightly more textured it will be, so it is purely preference-based. And you just gather a little stack together and work your way down. Oh, I think I remembered something important. Butter. You're gonna wanna melt a stick of butter for this beautiful blend of cornbread. And you know what? I'm gonna tell you right now, this cornbread, it's controversial. It's an extremely controversial cornbread because I will also be adding a little sugar to it, which I know certain cornbread purists will be very angry about, but that's okay because this is my stuffing cornbread and you can make it your way without sugar if that's important. Ooh, honey, honey, honey. That's roughly the point at which you should turn your honey off. Turn your honey off, let it sit here for 20 minutes just out of the way, hanging out. Meanwhile, enter 12-inch cast iron skillet territory. Add your butter and get that melting away. Back to our vegetables. Get all your celery in. And again, customize as you go. If you don't like celery, use less or none. One more thing that I've neglected to mention. Sometimes when you're making Thanksgiving dinner, we have a tendency to like keep things traditional, which is lovely. I love a tradition, and it's what brings us back to the table and makes us feel those wonderful food memories. And it's very visceral. Like your brain remembers things differently when you smell the same smells, you taste the same things. I get it. But you can experiment. You can have fun. You can keep it loose. You can try new things. And this is sort of, I wanted to play and have a little something different going on here, but I wanted to show you that you can go like really comfort food, really familiar, but still kind of out there and try something new and simplify. We are minimizing dishes. We are minimizing equipment. We are minimizing cook time. So after you make this cornbread in advance, you are then going to let it get a little stale, slice it up. By the way, if you make it the day of and you need like a hack for that, slice your cornbread up and stick it in the oven just to toast it and dry it out a little bit, and you will be good to go. But then the turkey, as it cooks, gets cooked on top of your cornbread stuffing mix. And what you are left with is the most saturated with flavor, delicious cornbread stuffing or stuffing cornbread, perfectly cooked turkey, all on one sheet tray, done in half the time of a regular bird. I literally don't know what could be more perfect than that situation. So it's just for you to hold on to as to why this should be your Thanksgiving recipe of the year. Okay, next we're gonna want some onion. Again, totally preference-based. I am going to use 2 onions, feels about right here. I feel like onion is the primary flavoring of most stuffing. So if you wanna go heavier, you definitely can. I'm just gonna put a little mince on here. You guys know the drill. Follow the lines going down and then a quick little slice across. And then when you get to the end, just so you don't risk any harm to your fingers, I just flip it down and give it a quick chop. Onions are good. Into the bowl. Let's get some garlic going too. Just pop your garlic out of its skin. 3 cloves could be good, maybe 4. Just trim off any little wooden stems and give it a little smash. Just to start to break it down. And then a quick little chop. You don't want your cloves to be too minced because I'm slightly concerned about them burning. So leave your garlic in a little bit larger pieces, and just remember this cornbread is going to be first cooked in the oven, then roasted again under the turkey as your turkey roast. So this garlic will have plenty of time to cook. Into our veggie mix, we are good to go. You will recall that I had melted that stick of butter. I'm going to take it out of the pan now and set it aside to make our cornbread itself. A little golden brownness. It's cooled ever so slightly. Butter is a critical flavoring element of cornbread. It obviously is going to help keep it really moist, and it's going to help develop that gorgeous golden brown color and crispness, especially at the base of the cornbread itself. Go ahead and grab like 2 more tablespoons of butter to cook our veg and toss it into the same pan. Remember, I promised you ease of cleanup in addition to ease of maximum flavor and Thanksgiving success. So back to your same cast iron skillet, which already has a lovely little coating of melted butter on the base. You're gonna add our veg. And we're not looking to develop a ton of color here. We're just gonna soften the onions and the celery, gently, gently cook that garlic. And that should take like 2 to 3 minutes. Let's get a little salt on there, shall we? A little kosher salt, a little pinchy pinch right over top. Let that butter melt, let this onion soften. Meanwhile, as your veg start to soften, you can go ahead and pull a few teaspoons of fresh thyme. Obviously, sage is sort of the classic Thanksgiving flavor, so if you have fresh sage, definitely just slice up a few of those leaves as well. But thyme is just fresh and herbaceous and a little lemony and just has this like wonderful vibrance that goes so nicely with otherwise really rich and flavorful meals. So I'm just pulling the delicate leaves. So you have this kind of long woody stem. It's not that woody, but a woody-ish stem. And you just hold it at the top and you can pull straight down and these delicate leaves release themselves. So once you have like, yeah, that's a lot more than 2 teaspoons, but whatever you feel comfortable with. You know, I just sort of like go by what looks good to me. And that looks good to me. That's probably a 1/4 cup of freshly pulled thyme. Let's toss it in with our now lovely and translucent softened onions, celery, and garlic. And as the thyme hits that hot butter, they are going to start to pop and frizzle, and that is like the essential oil of the herb exploding with flavor and scenting your entire mix. Okay, so I turned the vegetables off and I'm letting them cool a little bit now. While they're doing that, we'll start building the rest of our cornbread base. So for that, we're gonna use some stone ground yellow cornmeal. I want 3 cups of this, because we want like a pretty sturdy cornbread that won't melt and completely fall apart as we start pouring some nice little juicy broth over top. So while it's cooking in the oven with the turkey, it is getting so much hydration, moisture, flavor, but still maintains wonderful crisp edges and golden brown crunch. 3 cups of cornmeal. And guys, once again, minimal cleanup. We are going to use the same bowl that I had for the veg from before. Okay, controversy, to sugar or not to sugar, that is the question you need to answer. Because for me, I feel like a little bit of sugar goes a very long way here. You don't need a ton. You can use a tablespoon, 2 tablespoons. I'll do probably about a 1/4 cup of sugar all in, just to give it a little touch of sweetness that I think highlights that like honey habanero element. Salt, obviously, probably 2 teaspoons of kosher salt going in here, and then 1.5 teaspoons of baking soda. 1, 2, 3, and whisk it all together. That is your dry mix, and you can set that aside. And now we'll build up the really hydrating, flavoring, beautiful elements of this cornbread mix, which is going to be our stick of now slightly cooled melted butter. Buttermilk. Buttermilk does 2 things. First of all, it brings a rich sort of dairy element, obviously, but a beautiful tang that makes this cornbread feel really just nuanced, nicely balanced. It also obviously brings some hydration to the mix, but more than anything, it is going to kind of tenderize and hydrate the corn so that it ends up with a really lovely tender bite, which we like. 1 3/4 cups into our butter. Yum. And then we will get ourselves 2 eggs. Good, done. Let's make this dang cornbread, shall we? Wet and to dry. You're looking for, not too loose a batter, but nice hydrated cornmeal here that has a bit of body to it. And once this is all stirred together and combined, I will add in our softened veg, which will provide so much delicious additional flavor and texture and make it stuffing cornbread.